Welcome to the September 22nd, 2020 regular meeting of the Hsdsb School Board. I'm Karen Hsdenka, Vice Chair of the School Board, standing in this evening until Madam Chair arrives. To begin, we're going to go through the checklist to ensure meetings are compliant with the right to know law during the state of emergency. As Vice Chair of the Hsdsb School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the Governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen to this meeting by dialing the following phone number: 888-475-4499 or 877-853-5257. I am confirming that we are B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the district website at hsdsschools.net. I am confirming that we are C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please email hmstechnology@hsdsschools.net. I am confirming that we are D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Melissa, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Megan Malcolm?
Here, I'm alone in this room. There are other family members in the house.
Thank you. And I understand that Madam Chair will be late. I'll just mark her absent for now.
Okay.
David Smith?
Yes, I'm here alone in the room, and there's others in the house.
Thank you. Jim Sweeney? I don't see.
Jim also said that he will be about 10 minutes late.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hsdenka. And Mrs. Hsdenka?
Yes, I'm here alone in my office. There are other people in the house.
Thank you. And Executive Consultant, Dr. Earl Metzler?
I'm present here in my home office, and there are other members of my family in the home.
Thank you.
Okay, first up, we have approval of minutes. Board, take a look. You will see 4 sets before you: a regular and a non-public set of meeting minutes for September 8th, and a non-public and a special meeting minutes from September 16th. Please take a minute to look at them. And when you're ready, I'll accept a motion for approval.
So I'll move to approve both sets of minutes, Karen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please, Melissa.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Hsdenka?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to current business. I'm going to ask Mr. Flynn to please begin with an update on the opening of school, how we're doing, and any comments you might have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Metzer, do you want to start off tonight?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so the opening of school, first of all, and I know we've said this many times, we're very appreciative of our staff, obviously, and certainly our families for your level of patience. I think as we reflect back, we've done quite a lot of work to make sure that the opening of schools went smoothly. That being said, there's always that feedback that you're looking for. So I want families to know that whether you sent individual emails, whether you participated through the survey, any of that feedback has been very valuable. We obviously we got some, we had some issues at the middle school that I know Mr. Flynn is dealing with in terms of rigor, in comparison to if you have students in both schools. So there's issues that some of them are individual, and I know if you write to the board, if you write to Mr. Flynn or myself, we would encourage you to reach out to the principal, individual teacher. Some of them are issues that maybe more of a district approach. So we've looked at trying to get data, because I know our ultimate goal has not changed. That's to get everybody back to school in a safe learning environment. And so this past week, we've been asking staff all along. Staff obviously is very much involved in what they're doing, and we're also asking about how they feel about what's next. So we're trying to be sensitive to that, but yet we need that data so that we can drive that next piece, whether it's a phase 2 into some small cohorts and right into phase 3 eventually, all back. While that's happening, obviously all around us, there are COVID cases popping up here and there, and groups of students or even whole grades being quarantined, which complicates things to some degree. And then we got something out to parents, because we're trying to figure out, in the event that you have choice at some point in the near future, which we believe you will have, what do our percentages look like? So we're trying to marry those percentages, like what staff is comfortable with, and by no means am I implying or inferring that staff is refusing to do anything. Staff has been awesome. They continue to be, we're asking them the questions. What do you need to be comfortable with a phase 2 or phase 3? What's the time frame look like? Those sorts of things. So we're trying to get all that from staff, and we're also trying to meet the needs of families. And so families, and we're hoping at the end of the day that those percentages will match up in terms of choice. So we'll have a remote teaching team with our in-building team, and students that are in the buildings physically, and some that choose to stay home, and we'll be able to meet everyone's needs. Obviously very complicated. There's busing issues and other things, but we've been on that every day, all day. As each day goes by, we're trying to figure out how do we get to our goal, which is really to get everybody back full time. So I know some of the emails are, this needs to be thought about now, and I have to assure you, we are working on it every day. But the goal is to get those percentages as close as possible to something that's reasonable, that's a safe learning plan, that the staff that's delivering the direct instruction is comfortable with, in addition to the families that are trusting us with their children during the day, to make sure that's safe. So that's really the goal. So as you listen to our opening of schools, keep in mind, we wanted to do this well. So we're focused on that, but we're also trying to make sure that we plan effectively for that next move. So the big question is, you wonder when is that? So my hope is, as we flush the data and take a real good look at it, I know we're closing the survey to parents on Thursday. We'll hopefully have a plan for the board to consider on the 6th of October, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And so that would be some sort of cohort that will address some of the state testing. You could call it phase 2, if you will. And hopefully we'll have an idea of what phase 3 looks like, because what we're hitting as we put that plan together, we're hitting the list of items that staff needs in place to feel comfortable with each part of the phases, which is very individual in a lot of ways, but there are some common themes. So as we triangulate that information and try to get that so that both the families of the students and the staff are all comfortable, we're hoping to make that. So that's what you can look forward. I mean, you're not going to get a recommendation this evening, so I don't know if that was something people expected, but we hope to have something for you on the 6th of October. So, Mike, did I get everything?
Yeah, the only thing for my 2 cents is to reiterate the area of focus has been for us on the district is starting virtually great. As we've seen places pop up around us, things occurring, I would say that our preparation for any type of pivot or transition, we are in a great spot with the virtual preparation that we've done. And I'll discuss that further in the presentation. But it allows us to, if something were to occur and quarantine were to happen with anyone, we're well prepared for anything in that nature. So it's a compliment to the teachers. They took the time to prepare. And I think we're going to see that in the results that we've been, the early results that are coming back from the feedback is, kudos to the teachers for everything they've been doing. So.
No, which is great, Mike. And I think, for families, we just want to do what's right for Hampstead. So I know all the districts around us are everybody's all over the place with hybrid versions but at the end of the day, our goal is to get everybody back as soon as we can in a safe learning plan or a safe learning atmosphere. So we just want to use the data because in terms of staff and the families, I hope we want to be able to kind of make sure that those two line up nicely so that we can do this in as smooth and as with the least amount of disruption as possible as to getting students back in. And you're probably wondering what's the list, obviously protocol, what happens when you have a case, all those are all it's a comprehensive list of things that really need to be addressed, which they have been addressed in bits and pieces. But I think we want to make sure that that we're really clear on what Hampstead's vision is for being successful with this transition back. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Collins is leading the way again.
Good evening, school board and community. I just want to start off by saying after basically a week and a couple of days, we've determined that it's been a success with all of the work to be ready for this, to be virtual and have a blend of in-house instruction for our special education population. I've received personally lots of positive feedback, and I'm going to also say a few people have called me to say something's not working. And it's important that we've also always communicate about what's going on. This is coming from our families, and our teachers will walk in the door and say, hey, this is not working, this is working. As an example, today my principal's leadership team got together, and the report I got back is that our kindergarten kids are further along than we thought 2 weeks ago when we were starting this piece. So they're adapting rather well, and basically a virtual environment, which is very difficult for our younger learners. It's been a major learning curve for everybody and adapting to technology challenges. As an example, another thing that teachers have shared is children at home are sitting in their little Zoom studios. So everybody's starting to figure out to create the proper learning environment at home and setting those up. So we really appreciate all the families. We've been giving them a lot of advice, and many of them have been finding other great pieces. So our children are doing well with getting, the equipment and literally just having a desk in a quiet corner somewhere to do that. Home learning via Zoom and what I need when is starting to show lots of success. We're still getting that push-pull thing about how much is the right amount of Zoom time, how much is the time of when. I mean, a big conversation in my school today was making sure that we remind teachers and parents that children need to take a break during the day to have lunch and a recess break because they're little and they need to get out that energy, and that's part of their learning. We're starting to see some of the families reach out to Mrs. Craig. She's our tech integration teacher for tech support. And I'd like to remind everyone that you send an email to craigc@hampsteadschools.net, and she will send you all the information you need or even more. And she's putting some things together instructional to help out families. Space with the in-house and virtual instruction. I'm surprised. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that space is an issue at the central school already right now, trying to keep that whole spread out throughout the building. Most of our teachers, our classroom teachers and special ed, are actually working right at the school. We've got almost all of our therapists working right in the school. Our Title I tutors are working there. And we do have a few of them that are remote. which means they're working out of their homes or whatever they decide. Now, special education, in-house instruction and therapy is spreading out throughout the building. As an example, we typically put our learning center in 2 basic classroom spaces, and they've spread out to about 5 classrooms just so that they can have a little bit more of a space where they could zoom in to the kids that are doing the virtual piece, as well as the children that need to come in and be properly spaced for their, whether it be a special education support, a therapist. And we've got a wonderful group of paraeducators that are zooming into lessons to support children and actually providing direct support. Our unified arts and many of our teaching specialists are working remote, which I think is something that will carry through our next phase, which meaning music, art, the PE teachers, ventures, reading specialists, people of that nature. We can move to the next slide, please. I think one of the big pieces that is a big, huge challenge this summer. We entered the spring wondering what was going to happen with preschool enrollment, and then kindergarten went all over the place. Kindergarten and preschool has been very challenging as a building principal to keep the enrollments and try to track them. It almost seems like every day there's one little detail that we need to move around. As an example, we had so many students applying for kindergarten this spring that we had a lottery for full day kindergarten. And then we had so many of them that wanted morning kindergarten, we had to run a lottery just to sort of balance the classes. I think if this were not a COVID year, we probably would have ended up with 18 children in virtually every one of our kindergarten groups. I would have been a little bit pressed maybe to even talk about maybe an additional group. With all of the COVID impact, we've seen the equivalent of an entire classroom. Parents have opted to send their child to either a private kindergarten or a homeschooling or virtual setting. We see a little bit of this in the other grade levels, but I can also say at the same time, families are still moving into Hampstead and I'm still enrolling students. I looked at one set of numbers today that suggests I could have conceivably had more students to start this school year than I've had in the last 15 years. So they're out there. I think what's most important is that we know that they're there, and that as we plan our budget for next year, that's going to be an impact we need to be aware of. Many of the families, when they've called and spoke to us about their child not attending this year because they've gone to whatever their other option they've chosen, many of them have actually been very honest and said, we plan on bringing our child back, whether it be during the school year when the students come back to a spot where we're comfortable. And most of them are saying they're going to be back next year as well, whether it's this year or next year. We are starting a process at the central school, which little kids need things in front of them, whether that's a little piece of paper that is part of their learning piece or science project going on in a 3rd or 4th grade classroom. That Friday distribution is something we started last Friday. It worked really, really well. We're going to make some adjustments to it this Friday to make it a little bit more family friendly. We were running it right at lunchtime through the early afternoon. We're going to push the time frame a little bit later this week, so it's a little bit more family friendly. We've got a great group of paraeducators that we're making it work while the teachers are teaching. I just want to say thank you to the staff for making it work and those families that took the time to run by the central school. And we are being very flexible, so if a family can't show up on Friday afternoon, they can come by Monday morning and get these things that are for their child's learning. Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, sorry, I was talking with mute on, excuse me, Mr. Nola for the middle school.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to meet with you this evening. I just wanted to talk to you a few moments and I'm going to start with fall sports. I think it's the one before Mr. Flynn. There we go. So we did start with sports. We have girls soccer team. We've got 22 students involved. We have 23 in the boys soccer field. Boys soccer team. In the field hockey, we have 12 students, and cross country starts tomorrow. Teresa Ferreira is a paraprofessional at our school, and with a lot of support from parents and making this season happy. Teresa Ferreira is a runner herself and is on our staff. And she has 38 students that will be starting. We will be spreading that out by grade level. Fifth graders will be on Mondays. Sixth graders will be on Tuesday, and seventh and eighth graders will be running on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And we gave the older kids a little bit more time, one extra day, because we are preparing them for Pinkerton and the high school running experience. So we're following the NHIAA guidelines. We have a daily COVID reports that the parents fill out with the child and give to the coach every day. Waiver forms. We have masks that are being worn during informal times. We've got porta potties on the site. Whenever possible, we are social distancing. The coaches will wear their masks at all times, and we've asked for no spectators at tryouts or practices. And for away games, we can have one student athlete on the bus, on one seat on the bus at a time, and all spectators are expected to wear masks and practice safe distancing. We had our first soccer game yesterday, and it went very well, and we are finding our way. It's a whole new world, but parents have been extremely supportive, and we are very pleased with how our coaches are handling this right out of the gate. So fall sports. So instruction, week 1, we did have a soft start for the first week. Day 1 was our parade and getting to know students for a couple hours in the morning. So we've been in class for 5 days. We've focused mainly on study skills, advisory activities, learning about one another, teaching the kids how to access all the tools on Google Classroom. And by design, our rigor was soft on the first week. And this week, the teachers have absolutely expected more of their students now that everybody knows how to access everything that they need. So the afternoon hours are being filled with student work, small group work. Office hours are now posted for the teachers to be meeting with the students. So I expect that you will see the rigor has improved or increased. But again, we designed that for the first week to be more of a soft start. Our students have very much risen to the occasion. Our teachers, absolutely, as Dr. Metzler said, our teachers have worked tirelessly. They have worked together collectively at the grade level to ensure that the children know how to access everything, and having norms for how they act in the classroom and what the resources are for them and for their parents outside of the live instruction pieces. We have the technology issues. I have to give kudos to our technology department. I know, Mr. Flynn, you as well. They have done an amazing job of being so supportive and being so timely in their responses to parents. We've really been blessed with such a dedicated team. We have a technology troubleshooting guide that Mr. Chad Pimentel has put together for just how do you go about what happens if something's with the video or the audio. So helping kids and their parents learn if there's something going on, these are the things that you can try first. And of course, our technology department, they're just a click away as well. Our family resources, there have been a number of community supports throughout the Hampstead area with the YMCA, Boys Club, CLM. Our social worker, Mrs. Julie Barbick, is putting together a whole family resource package for people to see what is out there for childcare on the off hours, and even some remote learning supports for teachers' children. So it's been it's definitely been a challenge. We're working really hard and trying to meet the needs as soon as we possibly can when we hear of them. And I will say it's been great having our special education department greeting our students. The transportation's been timely on. It's been pretty efficient. Our kids are being greeted warmly by paraprofessionals and case managers, and they're throughout the building with privacy for their IEP services. And it's just been great to see the kids, and the case managers have been handling it extremely well. So we've encouraged teachers to absolutely be contacting parents if there's any concern whatsoever. If students are having any trouble with regards to accessing a piece, they talk them through it. So at this point in time, I'm open to any questions you may have, but our facility is in good shape, and Jeff Mackey has done a really nice job of making sure our building is ready to receive the visitors that we do have.
Thank you, Maria. We'll save the questions for once everyone's done. It makes it
Okay.
yes, more seamless.
Pleasure.
So, Francine.
Good evening. In terms of special education, we have 62 students at total receiving in-person services at this time, 51 at the central school and 11 at the middle school. I do want to acknowledge that our special education teachers and therapists have worked tirelessly in scheduling, planning, and providing both remote and in-person services. Our paraeducators have been flexible and willing to be of support wherever they can. Our student numbers have increased a little bit from just a week ago, and I do expect that the numbers may continue to go up, and as they do, and if they do, we'll just continue to make ongoing adjustments as needed. We're currently providing transportation for 23 students, and I want to thank those parents who are able to and have been bringing their children to school, when they're able to do so. But Sandy Hodgkins and Deb Nichols at Durham have been extremely responsive and working hard to coordinate multiple rides for kids at various times throughout the entire week. To date, we've completed over 100 compensatory meetings. We do have until October 14th. And teams are making progress, communicating with families, assessing their skills, student skills, and planning for how to address any additional student needs. And in-person evaluations just continue to occur at both buildings. And we've had a couple of referrals, so the numbers have gone up a little bit there too.
Thank you.
Mike, if
Mr.
I
Mackey?
could, Mike, if I
Dr.
could,
Messer. Yeah.
just real quick. I mean, special education, Francine has just done a remarkable job, and we asked her to do this, and she's a little shorthanded and or a lot shorthanded, and so just really, really impressive. So I didn't want that to go without. I hope parents and the students understand the efforts that our special ed staff with her leadership has really, had to tackle, just to get us to where we are today. And I think it's going to get better. The state has thrown her an incredible amount of challenges with meetings and all those things within deadlines. And, she's just knocking it out of the park. So I know Karen Gallagher's looking on saying, we were a strong team, and she's probably as proud, but we're all proud of the work in a new role, like leading the learning, taking care of our kids and our APs. So big thank you to the special ed department, and certainly with her leadership. Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Mackey.
Everyone, so for facilities update, we got our indoor air quality test results back, and with that, it came back as our HVAC system is in good working order. We had 6 devices spread out at each school. I tried to lay them out in areas that I thought would be, troublesome, or in some normal areas as well. And the areas all came back pretty consistent across the board, so that's very good for us. The cleaning, daily and nightly cleaning, is in motion. For maintenance, it's been great. We've been able to get a ton of small building projects going, completed, and we're still working on a bunch. That's been a huge, huge plus for us. And for grounds, the fields are being maintained currently for all the sports that are going on. And lastly, the tents are now up at both schools.
Thanks, Mr. Mackey. Just real quick on the tents, Mr. Nola and has already been receiving some teachers who are interested in holding some possible after-school activities to certainly put those tents to use right away. But they were just completed yesterday, right, Mr. Mackey? If I remember, I think it was completed.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to start to begin the use of those tents so that we can schedule some after-school small group activities, some of the clubs, so that we can continue to allow these students to use other resources as well. Okay, so on to technology. I can't thank the families and the staff enough in regards to this area. It's the first time, we've launched these amount of devices outside of our facility. Nearly 700 devices have gone out to the community. And to put it into perspective, that first day at middle school with the advisory, we had 400 kids logging into advisory. I would say, to put it lightly, the phones were ringing off the hook with missing links or cameras down or connections, all the things that you can possibly think of 400 students trying to log on at the same time. And I'd say we narrowed it down to about 28 serious issues. And by the next day on Tuesday, we had 24 of them resolved with either a supplemental device so that we can repair, or whether it was a webcam that we had to attach a USB one. So the tech team really did a great job of problem solving. We're continued to problem solve. If you can imagine, when we purchased the 8th grade devices 4 years ago, I don't think anyone obviously anticipated where we currently be in right now. So we're finding some challenges with the capacity of 24 students in one Zoom session. So we're working through ways to problem solve, whether it be 2 kids have cameras on at a time, or we do breakout sessions. They're still able to do everything on the Chromebook with it, Google Classroom, with the work, with the apps. The real issue we're having is with streaming 26 students at the one time, but we're seeing no issues or minimal issues, excuse me, with the 5th grade, which has the brand new Chromebook. So we're working through those with families. More specifically, I put connection down there as a bullet point. It's hard for us to solve connection issues specifically, but we've certainly worked with some families on ways to improve, where routers are located, or boosters, or perhaps their modem was out of date and they just had to contact Comcast. We've had a couple of those. And even more on point, I know the school board has asked a few times about families with no connections. Our student service team has been on top of that, and the Lions Club has been involved in offering their support. They've been phenomenal. So we're really trying to close those gaps. After 5 days of virtual instruction, I would say that we've really narrowed down our issues to under 1 or 2% that we're still trying to figure out with the families or the students or whatever it may be. So it's a compliment to everyone involved, because I know how frustrating it can be, specifically with myself when I'm managing my own children at home when there's issues going on. So it really is a partnership between the tech team and the parents and the teachers. So we're really trying to narrow that down so that everyone feels supported. You're going to see applications start to launch here. We rolled them out slowly on purpose. Pear Deck and Nearpod are district-wide applications that you're going to see some benefits of through Google Classroom and extensions of the classroom. Clever has been a great move for us, and you're going to see more and more applications pop up there. So what we learned with Clever is in regards to rostering and making it a single sign-on service. Sometimes, believe it or not, on the Clever side, it may take 3 or 4 days for it to launch. So as we move forward, you're going to see upwards of 31 applications come out through Clever, which will be a single sign-on procedure. To the Chromebook order update, we had a conference call this afternoon with our supplier, and to be really honest and transparent, it wasn't great news. They had an update from the manufacturer, in which they are now saying that it could be a ship date of October. I just spoke with Mr. Dowd in regards to, that went out as a bid in August. And part of the bid requirements through the policy was the delivery expectation, which was September 4th. And our supplier was one of the reasons they won the bid was because they are the ones that said they could hit that date of September 4th, which obviously has now been backed up now 2 weeks. On the conference call, they discussed about how the manufacturer and the steps that those Chromebooks have to take. They have to quarantine for 13 days at one port, then they have to quarantine for another 14 days at another. I got a little bit more background on where they're coming from and how they're getting here. Obviously, those aren't the great answers that our first and second grade families want to hear. So in talking with Mr. Dowd, we've begun to explore other options, on manufacturers or suppliers that ship 25 here, ship 25 there, so that we can certainly try and bring those in as soon as possible to support those families. With that being said, I know Mr. Collins has met with the first and second grade teachers, and they've adapted outstandingly to delivering the instruction. The families have done phenomenal in supporting their students with the device if they have one. What I'm going to say, and I know Mr. Collins has already done this, is any first and second grade family that is really struggling for a device or is in need, please contact the school. And as we ordered parts for all of our broken Chromebooks, our older ones, and as those come in, we can certainly try and put as much as we can in a family's hands for sure. It's been a challenge, and Dr. Metzler has done a great job of helping me work through some of these processes with ordering things of this type of magnitude. So it's been interesting to say the least. So that is the technology update. Dr.
Mike,
Metzler, did you? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just jump in? You wanted me to mention something about air quality too?
Yeah.
So why don't we do that? So first, I know, lots of concerns about our HVAC system. What kind of air is it bringing in? What is it taking out? What's this report look like? I just want to emphasize that the report in its current state is in draft form. So, once it's a final report, we'll certainly post that and share that with everyone so everyone can take a look. It was better news than perhaps I had expected, but it's also some of the things in the report have generated some additional questions. When the air was tested, there weren't students in the building. So there's a lot, and there's some recommendations. But I think through Jeff Mackey and certainly others, we'll get an opportunity to get that report in its final form, if you will, and get that posted out to you so you can take a look. But it is preliminary, at a glance, it's better information than perhaps I had expected. On the technology piece, just like we've looked at new platforms for students and for learning, for teachers, for teaching and learning, for instruction, we're also looking at a new platform for our business operations, which will make us far more efficient, less paper. Really excited. We should have that in place real soon. So we're excited about that. That will help with quite a bit, especially onboarding new staff, all those requisitions, all those sorts of things. And I was talking to Jeff Dowd earlier today. He was pretty excited about it. This is really what Jeff had been asking about, when he first came on board years ago. Why do we do so many things with so many different applications that are incompatible? Why don't we have a single platform? So that platform should be in place soon, within the next few months. So that'll be great. And that will help with the efficiency and the effectiveness with all of our operations around business, not just money, but all the things that we need to do to get approvals and all those sorts of things. So I really, hindsight, it would have been great to have this in place before we were forced into this situation last March, but it will help us moving forward a great deal. So we're excited about that. So that's good. Now, as we get into this next part of the presentation, Mike, if I could, just want to say a little bit. We have testing that we have to do. Even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, state testing. So, we took a look at this, and it comes at an interesting time. It's into October. So just a little bit of a preview. We need to bring in cohorts of students. So this really is part of a phase 2. Like, students will start to come back, all students, and in these particular grades. But we want to be able to design this. This is just a testing schedule, but we want to be able to design this to really start to look like a phase 2. Now, this is great because we can get students in, I think, into safe learning places to actually take their tests. I want to take a look at what we can do for the grades that are not being tested. Is that an opportunity to bring in some cohorts? Just a preview. We don't have that all designed yet because we want to use the information from the surveys. So, we want to get exactly what staff needs to be comfortable, exactly what families looking at as far as choice. The preliminary data looks like about an 80-20 split. About 80% of the parents are looking to get their children back in somehow, some way. About 20% are opting to stay in a remote. I want to try to see, what we'll have for staff, because staff has their own unique challenges as to whether or not they can be in person or not for so many different reasons that are very personal and private. But we're hoping that we'll have a remote team that can meet the needs of that 20% and an in-person team that can meet the 80%. And somehow through this whole testing cohort, it'll be a phase 2 that will get us to phase 3. It hasn't been completely designed yet. I have to say it one more time because we really need to take the survey data and look at what we have for resources so that we can meet the needs of those populations. So we are working on it. It is coming. All I can do is thank people for your patience. All I can say is I understand your frustration. For many of us, we all want to be back, but we want to make sure it's safe. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to try some of this phase 2 in cohorts and design something that may help us get to that phase 3 quickly. So that would look like, as you're looking at these, you'll look at these next 2 testing, that gets you into the middle of October, like we had talked about. And hopefully by late October, early November, we're into that. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes, hopefully into some sort of phase 3 for the board to consider. But this is something that we're planning and we'll have for you on October 6th, which is 2 weeks from tonight. This is just the testing schedule, which is just a piece of what that phase 2 could look like. Okay, Mike, I got it?
Yep. More specifically, this is, as he mentioned, a state requirement. We anticipated in the spring, as you know, that the New Hampshire state assessment was canceled. There was talk all summer on how we were going to implement anything, and then we received notification from the state that we will be testing grades 4 through 8. In regards to the test, it's not your typical New Hampshire state assessment. It is only 30 minutes for each assessment, so 30 minutes in reading, 30 minutes in math, and we are going to be testing the previous year. So 4th grade students will actually be taking the 3rd grade assessment, 5th grade will be taking 4th grade, and so forth and so on. So they're using it as they've been calling it a dipstick assessment, and we have not received any further notification of what may occur in the spring. So as you can see, this is the draft schedule that Dr. Cheney and Mr. Collins came up with 4th grade would occur on this date. And as Dr. Metzer said, we'll have for sure information for you on the 6th. And that communication will come out from the building principals. In the middle school, we took a different approach. Same thing, whole grade, but will be broken into small pods throughout the building. They've already, Ms. Danola and Ms. Joseph have done a lot of legwork on mapping out so that everyone could fit in during that time. And we were able to complete it in 4 days. And then that allows us with some makeup time as well. Okay, Dr. Metzer, any closing points?
Oh, that's our opening of schools, and certainly a little preview about hopefully how we can get to phase 2 and into phase 3. Also, I think we indicated what some of our challenges are, and certainly what some of our opportunities are moving forward. So again, we appreciate everybody's support and patience. We are reading your emails. We are taking everything into consideration. We are trying to make sure that we take all of the recommendations, suggestions, if you will, and triangulate them in a way to come up with the safest learning plan moving forward that everyone's comfortable with. So that's where we are. So thanks, Mike.
So Karen, turn it back to you. Oh, Caitlin, I'm sorry, Caitlin.
Thank you, everyone. Any questions or comments from board members?
So I've got a couple questions. Oh, go ahead, Megan. I
Okay.
saw you raise your hand.
Okay, so I just have a couple. So in regards to the tents, I'm wondering if there's been discussion on how learning spaces are going to be configured. I know there was mention of teachers having interest in using them for after-school activities, but just wondering about the learning environment, how school learning will be organized.
Yes, that is it. That's the work that's going on in regards to the transitioning in. So believe it or not, we'll be incorporating those within our schedule and how classrooms can access them throughout the day. It also involves Officer Conway in regards to being careful with, the safety aspect of it, so to speak. But those tents, the intended use specifically, I could anticipate the one within the courtyard of the middle school when we do return being used from 8 to 2:30. That would be the goal. The next part we're working on, believe it or not, is the tables and chairs. Having enough for those, and then the technology team is actually working on how do we get to make sure that our signal reaches out to be able to use the devices. So the tents are in every aspect of what we're working on when we plan to return.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is for Mrs. Denola. So I understand it's still very early, but I am wondering if, based on some of the initial feedback from both teachers and parents, as well as maybe students, if there's any lessons learned. This question is, in my mind, it's specific to the personalized learning session. If there's been any lessons learned in this first 5 days that will influence some change and maybe help the students and teachers going forward.
Could you be just a little bit more specific, Mrs. Malcolm?
Sure. So I'm a parent of a 5th and a 6th grader, and my personal experience with the personalized learning, I'm still a little bit confused about it. My kids currently see it as free time, and I know that's not what it's intended to be. So just wondering if the students have reached out to the teachers or even the parents. I can't imagine I'm the only parent with this.
No, you are not. And that's the conversations I've been having with parents, but also with teachers, as I met with a few of them yesterday. And they said, the rigor, the intention of work that is expected of children is definitely being communicated this week for sure. Last week they really did, as we said, a soft start. But the intention is that during live instruction, kids are, face to face with their teachers and their classmates. They're doing the live instruction, and then the afternoons they are to be doing their work that is given to them by their teachers, to be working independently and to be doing their classwork. Because in a normal classroom, the teacher is doing the direct instruction and then, doing small groups, and then they're able to explore and research and do the assignments during that time. So that is what the afternoons are expected to be. And on Wednesdays, that is as well. And, we really did make a very conscious decision not to have the kids on video for a full school day. Just the research shows that it's just not good for their mental health, their academic health. And so we really gave that a lot of thought. So I think if we spoke next week about the same issue, I believe you will be pleased with how it is meted out from this point in time, because we absolutely need to use this time wisely, and student responsibility, taking responsibility for their learning in the afternoon, but also being able to access their teachers because of their office hours, which have now been distributed as well. So I will absolutely make sure that I'm monitoring it and checking in to see how that is expanded during those times.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Caitlin, if I could on that as well.
Yep, go ahead.
In terms of the rigor, or and having experienced this, and I think we all have children on one extreme or the other. Our middle school staff expects and kind of gets our children to be more responsible for their own learning. So, for instance, any particular assignment could be 10 minutes to 4 hours, right? And so sometimes you'd have to ask your child or your student, like, well, they weren't expecting you to spend 4 hours on that, or you need to spend more than 10 minutes on that. And so I think a lot of times it's very inquisitive. I mean, they give some pretty deep lessons, but I think that's where I think the lesson learned here is in person. It's a lot easier to coach and move them into that independent learning. And I think that's a place maybe where we struggled a little bit even last spring into now, because they don't have them in person to send them home to do that. They're asking them to do that over a Zoom call. And I think for some people it's a checklist and they're done with what they're done with when they're done with it. And so perhaps it's not as deep and as rich as it is intended to be. So I've looked at some of the lessons. I've looked at some of it, and I think I feel pretty confident in the statement I just made. I think there is the opportunity and option for it to be extremely rigorous. But I think sometimes if you take the path of least resistance, it can be done pretty quickly. Doesn't mean it was done very well, and it doesn't mean you took it to the level. But we also don't want students paralyzing themselves with turning something that should have lasted a half hour to 45 minutes into 4 or 5 hours at a pop and in front of a screen forever. So I think that's part of it. I don't know if that's a comprehensive answer, but I think that's part of the lessons I think we're learning as we go with this remote learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Metzler. Megan, are you good?
I'm
Or
good. Yeah.
does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah.
David, I know you had
Yep.
questions.
Yeah, I'll start with Mr. Collins. A couple questions for you, Mr. Collins. We heard that the Chromebooks, we don't have all the Chromebooks we wanted, that we expected. How many students right now are without Chromebooks between the first and second grade? You're on mute, Mr. Collins.
I'm going to estimate we're probably talking about 170 students that don't have Chromebooks. I've already started some conversation with some of the families. Today we issued about 8 or 9 iPads to family, which will certainly give them at least the Zoom capability and the web capability to use our apps such as Lexi and some of those other learning tools that we find essential. I know Mr. Flynn and his staff are working on finding a few more of those. We're also working hard to find as many of the Chromebooks as we can to get those out. I've had a number of families that have said to me that they have an alternate means in place and have actually returned the Chromebooks to us. So I think it's going to take a community effort here to deal with this unfortunate turn of events. This also goes to something else, which I think is important. We did have a significant number of families that were very successful this spring without a school issued device, but it's like kind of like working with half of the tools. So this means that Friday pickup is critical, that we get the information out to the families, sort of the paper copies, as well as all the links so that we can support the families. I think our most important piece is to make sure every home has access to get into the internet so they can get to the pieces that are essential. And I think we're pretty close to high 90% there, which is good, but it certainly is not ideal if a family has multiple children or someone's using a lesser device.
Right. Okay. You mentioned about the kindergarten, that the budget awareness that we should have as we're coming upon budget season. The numbers that it sounded like 1/3 of the numbers for kindergarten are no longer enrolled. Is that a good, fair statement?
I think it's not quite a third. I think it's more like a fourth, but yes. Because right now we have 5 groups that are, if they were all here, we'd be looking at 17 to 18 per group. But right now we are looking at in full day kindergarten around an average of 16 to 17. And our half day kindergarten groups are really about an average of 10.
Okay.
Which means if families do decide to return their child when we start rolling the children into the building in whatever form, I'm assuming that quite a few of those families will return the children. I'm also assuming quite a few of the families will continue with the private kindergartens. I mean, Hampstead's very blessed. There's some very good kindergarten programs. So
Yep.
We'll work with the families to support them to make sure that they're ready for first grade, which is really a big, important component of the kindergarten experience.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming it's not the same kind of percentage across first through fourth grade?
It actually is not. It's actually significantly less. I mean, we're looking at probably an additional maybe 4 or 5 students per grade level that have gone to another model. I mean, it includes charter schools. It includes some parochial schools. It includes some homeschooling, and some other families have chose things such as VLAX. And I know we've got a few families that are on a waiting list for a VLAX as well. So this is evolving.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think probably my last question for you right now is, you know, I've been highly critical of remote as far as because it's the interaction children are not having together that they normally would. Can you talk to a little bit about how the teachers are trying to promote the interaction between students? You know, because one thing is they're in classroom, they got to listen to teacher, but is there anything else being provided for students?
Part of the training that we did I'll give you one simple example is in a Zoom session, there's something called a breakout session. So if you were in a typical classroom at my school, let's just say a second grade classroom right now, a teacher could say, why don't you take these 2 or 3 kids and go over there? We provide a para for special education or for art, the remediation pieces. So, you know, you've got somebody that would go work with 3 or 4 children on reading a book or working on a math topic or whatever. You can actually do that within the Zoom world so that those 2 or 3 children can go over to meet with a paraeducator or another teacher that may be working with them. The secondary piece, and that was the reason the whole concept of WIN was so critical to the Central Schools planning, is that the teachers right now are starting to create groups. Instructional groups. You know, everybody knows that you go into an elementary room, you got the Bluebirds, the Wrens, and, you know, the different groupings of math reading groups. I mean, that's what we all remember. I mean, that still happens, and it can happen through the WIN times. So that way the teacher says, I'm going to meet with, hey, you 3 kids over here, and we're going to do a session this afternoon at 1:30, so they'll know that they're going to meet with their group of friends. So it does create that interaction. It's about, you know, it is devoid of a lot of pieces, just like, you know, I very much enjoy watching the interaction of a school board sitting at a table. But right now, you guys have been unable to do that for 6 months. So it's just a different world. It's certainly not what we can provide in real life, but given the limits that we have, I think we've come a great distance from where we were in April.
Agreed. That's good to hear. Thank you. I don't know, Karen or Jim or Caitlin, anybody have any questions?
That's okay. I don't think it's anything that we can do about, that we can take care of really, but I just want to put it out there that I would be concerned about the validity of our test results that we're talking about having in October 20th. It seems like it's been somehow unfair to the local towns, you know, the lack of responsibility on the federal level and on the state level, giving us guidance on how to reopen our schools on one hand, and on the other hand, they're mandating that we take these standardized tests. So I'm a little concerned about that because you have kids who haven't been in-person learning for a while. Now they're going to be going into a school. They're going to be sitting, you know, farther apart. It's going to be a new experience for them in the middle of a pandemic, and we're going to expect them to concentrate on taking a standardized test. I just think that's unrealistic that we're going to get a very good outcome for those tests. And like I said, I don't think it's our fault. I think it's the hand we've been dealt and we have to deal with it. But I want everyone to be aware that I wouldn't be surprised if those test results aren't what they have been in the past. It's just my observation. Thanks.
I was actually.
I can certainly, comment on that. Those are a single point of data, and we'll take it for whatever it is, and try to make sense of it. I don't think we'll be making any major changes to our curriculum and instruction based on this fall set of testing. I'm not sure what value it will have, but our kids are resilient. I expect them they'll do well. They always do well. And we'll take it for what it's worth, I think. But it's apples to apples in many ways because everyone's kind of in the same boat for whatever reason. So, but I don't think we're going to underreact or overreact to whatever the results are. We'll just take a look at them and try to make sense of them and report out.
I think that was another one I was going to start to ask with you, Dr. Metzler. I know you're going to be, providing a plan to us on the 6th, like you had said. I agree with Karen. It's going to be kind of unfair of the students having to come in on a day when they're going to see their fellow students for the first time. I can't imagine the energy that's going to be bottled up in these children that are going to be for the first time seeing other students and teachers in 6 months. I would just ask, considering the plan of possibly bringing in the students sooner than that, so that some of that is taken care of in whatever, you're thinking of a phase 2, phase 3 to bring to the board. That was going to be just an input. So thank you, Karen, for starting with that. One thing you mentioned, Dr. Metzler, before was a list from staff of kind of like a punch list. Is that something you're going to be prepared to share with us either today or on the 6th? Because we hadn't heard about a list from staff yet.
Well, the list of items. Well, first and foremost, a good idea as part of the planning. In terms of how we bring students back. I mean, a testing schedule. That's just part of what that would look like. That doesn't necessarily mean that would be the first day that cohort will be back. So, point well taken. Maybe they're back in a practice kind of thing first before they actually sit down and take some tests. So they do have some time to see each other and feel back what school's like and all those sorts of things. But that'll be all part of whatever plan we can put together. I think the second part of what you're asking. Could you rephrase that or repeat that?
Yeah, you had mentioned at the beginning of the slides that you were reviewing a list from staff of things, considerations of what's going to make people comfortable. And you had mentioned a list from staff. I wasn't sure what that was about exactly because we hadn't heard that.
Excellent. That's data that's being extracted from the survey that we sent out to staff that went out at the end of last week, which would have been part of, staff's comfort level with the safe learning plan. So we asked staff, I think specifically, and Mike, feel free to jump in if I phrase this wrong. Just basically, what would you need in place, or what would you need to feel comfortable about a full return and a hybrid return or phase 2 return, if you will. And so, staff had mentioned a number of things. And the range, you can imagine the range. I'm ready. Send me back tomorrow. I don't need a mask. We need a mask mandate? Do we need shields? Do we need? So we're going to really need to take a look at all that and see, if are there any resources we need from the board to help us? Are there recommendations that we feel represent what most of the staff or a majority of the staff or whatever percentage we think is a powerful number, and kind of place value on different things that we feel would be helpful to getting everyone back. I mean, that's really all part of putting a plan in front of the board that's really endorsed by the people in the trenches that are delivering the direct services. So I would have thought that, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's, I don't know. I can't remember exactly how I presented it to you, but I can't imagine I presented it differently a week or two ago, whenever that we'd be asking the staff. The spirit really is, what do you need to be? It's really, what do you need to feel comfortable to be back with students, to make sure that we make sure we hit as many as we can, so that, and it's so personal and so individual that there's just so many things. But a comprehensive plan would address most. but not all. And so leaving a few off. I mean, for some people, it's a vaccine. No vaccine, I'm not comfortable, right? Well, we can't, I can't come up with a vaccine, but together we can probably get most of the items on the list. I think will be part of a plan. Maybe they would have been part of a plan anyway, but this just helps, us connect what people are asking for with what's in the plan, right?
No, all right. No, thank you. I was just curious because I know that we had the task force that was mostly made up of teachers and administrators, and I thought the list was from that. So I wasn't sure if it was a list from the task force or a new list based on the survey. So thank you. Um, ones for Mr. Flynn I have is on the tech communication. I think that was great what you said, Mr. Flynn, about providing the families that were having those connection issues to contact Comcast and other ways. Is that something that you would be able to share with all parents in some sort of communication? Just so, because maybe some people just are struggling through and just thinking it's just their connection or it's just their way, but maybe it's something that you could help to provide and lessen the burden of other families trying to work through it.
So we talked about it coming out in one of the principal's newsletters to get in touch with the student service team. Those three individuals, I think we mentioned a couple weeks ago, Mr. Smith, same thing. They already know their students and they know their families and they know the people who have needed connections. We've looked into buying hotspots, which isn't a wireless connection. It runs off a cell signal, but then you're also dealing with Hampstead and connection is just alone. So we are problem solving. Also, one of the good things that came out of the middle school starting on one day and then the central starting on the next day is we were really able to target. We have a comprehensive list. So you'll see something come out in one of the principal's newsletters that, kind of like what Mr. Collins has already done. If you're having issues, please let us know. Please let us know so we can support you.
Okay. I guess that's it for now. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Funk.
I just have one thing I want to be clear about. When I was talking about the testing, I think David and I were on two different levels. I was talking about the date of testing, not about the date of returning to school. I wasn't advocating for an earlier return to school. I was just commenting on the validity of the testing. Not to say that I think we need to rush back to school before it's completely safe. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Caitlin, it's Jim.
Hey, Jim, go ahead.
How are you? Thank you, everybody, for the presentation. Can I ask some questions now, Caitlin?
Of course.
Excellent. I guess save the best for last. You got to go last, right?
You guys are asking great questions. I'm not gonna have to do anything.
There you go. That's what it's all about. Sometimes no one has a question to ask because it's already been asked. I guess I wrote down a bunch of things and I don't want to ramble here. So in a way, we've already gone to phase 2 by our kids going back to sports. They might not be in the building, but they're back to doing some things. And my question is, I was thinking about with the buses on sports. I know we really haven't talked about buses with phase 2 yet, but I'm going to consider sports like phase 2 in a way. Do children have to wear masks on the bus for sports?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
All right, just asking.
Yep.
And then are we going to follow the same guidelines with using the tents if some of these groups do stuff after school before phase 2 starts?
Yes.
Yes.
There will be the same guidelines in place for as if you were running a practice. I'll just use, let's say ABC Club starts back up. We will not, even though ABC Club is one of our bigger clubs, you will not see, 40 kids showing up. Just like cross country, we got the numbers and then we divvy them up into a safe number that we were able to manage and socially distance and so forth and so on. So those same procedures will be put in place for the tents.
Okay, yeah, I just wouldn't want any false sense of security because some people think it's outside, when
Right.
it's really just
Right.
a classroom that's outside. It's not really outside.
Well, if I could, that's that same thing when we talk of sense of security, right? So let me get back to the air quality testing, right? we didn't test for exchange rates, right? So if exchange rate testing is something that we need to get done, Jeff and Jeff are going to need plenty of lead time because that's a different test. That's a more comprehensive. I don't know if it takes longer. I think it's just a more difficult test. And I think that factors into the inside, outside the building, learning spaces, those sorts of things. But if exchange rate is something that's going to be a factor for people's level of comfort, we're going to need to know that like as soon as possible, so that if Jeff and Jeff need to have that exchange rates tested, that's different than air quality. Okay.
Okay. Let me think about that. Anyways, let me just make a comment about the computers. It's unfortunate about the computers, but the the PC supply chain was extremely interrupted by COVID, and the millions upon millions of PCs, not just for Hampstead, not just for New Hampshire or the United States, the whole world is looking for laptops, and I think we're fortunate to have what we have, and I feel bad for the students in first and second grade, but hopefully they'll come through quickly, or some alternative. So that was just a comment. Sorry, Mrs. Denola or Mr. Collins, can you talk about the social emotional piece? What is being discussed with these young children about the new stresses on their life of not seeing their children, working from home, having to think about COVID? Could you talk about that a little bit?
I would say at the middle school level, we're giving children an opportunity throughout their day. They have advisory, every day, that and one day is extended, and a couple of days are before school. One day is not before school, but the beginning of school. One at the end of the week is at the end of the day, to check in with kids and validate that what they're struggling with. So in these small groups of just 10, sometimes we have just groups of 8, and they're going to be with this same teacher all year long. And they're having an opportunity to say, geez, I'm really frustrated. This stinks. I miss my friends. They're validating how they're feeling. And it's not only is this good for the students to be able to just say it out loud outside of their homes and to other people that are part of their nest. It says good for my staff as well, to validate and for the kids to see them saying, yeah, I really miss you, but we're trying to be safe. We're trying to do the right thing, and we're all in this together. And it's, as a parent myself, I know your kids start turning you off after a while, but when it comes from somebody else, whether it's the classroom teacher, their advisor, we are working really hard at that social emotional piece. And that's why we've incorporated into the day. We've done a lot of training with our staff. Even today, I received 2 more really valuable lessons from our advisory committee that are just cranking out things of how to get kids to open up and how to be able to use their words to explain their emotions in a safe, non-judgmental kind of way. And the teachers have said it's been a very meaningful experience and a safe place for kids to just be. So then we can get about the business of the learning, because the social emotional piece is the piece that I think that we absolutely needed to improve on. Once we knew that we needed to do better, we are doing better. So I encourage you to talk to your kids about the advisory program as well. I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Collins.
Well, I think we'll go back to what we did before we opened up school. We actually brought in Dr. DeLoe, who's actually an alum of the Hampstead School District, but she's part of the Cassie Yackley Research Group, and talking about trauma. And she actually shaped her 2 days of training for our staff around the social emotional learning needs of children. So we provided the first staple, which is to make sure the staff know what to look for. Secondly, there's been a lot of communication internally within our building to make sure that we are providing social emotional learning lessons. We've used a program called the Second Step for the last few years. And this year, we were planning on transitioning that more to a classroom teacher model, but we've We've moved back to our school counselor to give a constant message across our building. And again, we have a social emotional team at our school that's there to support students, which includes our school counselor, our school nurse, it includes our school psych, it includes our behaviorist, it also includes our social worker, and they meet regularly with the administration to talk about where students are. And I think the last piece I just want to emphasize is that WIN session, which is going to be critical for the teachers to check in with a child, because parents have called me and said, my kid's not really getting used to this right now. And I'm directing them to the teacher and just literally checking in with the kids. And I have to just jump in and tell you one of the fun things that I've been trying to do. It's called Zoom bombing. I've been literally walking into classrooms when teachers are having lessons. And one cute little guy, he was sitting with the paraeducator because he was having a moment. And I walked in, and instead of the look of like, oh my gosh, the principal's in my face on the computer, he was just like sat right up and he was like, hey dude, how you doing? It was just really so nice. I mean, just that low level of peace of connecting with our children. We're trying to find ways to do it. I'd love to have them in the building, but it's not right yet. So therefore we're building all these little structures around to take care of our little ones. And you know, our big ones they get pretty big in 4th grade, but anyway, we're looking forward to spending more time with them. Thank you.
I appreciate all the thought that's gone on to the SEL piece of this. You know, there's so many different types of kids out there, and to have someone left behind, but to really get these kids to open up is important. I guess that this leads me to the other thing about maybe kids not feeling comfortable going into school for testing, as Karen pointed out. You know, if a family isn't ready to send their child back for phase 2, is there an option for testing that doesn't include going into school?
I'll respond to that. First of all, the testing that this conversation about is the state mandated testing. We consider that just sort of a benchmark that we look at once a year for our school. And I'll speak to specifically the 4th graders, the only ones coming into the central school, because it's really an assessment upon 3rd grade learning. So the students are just going to come in and say, what did they learn during their 3rd grade year? And of course, they've narrowed the test window down significantly. We only use that test in a minimal way to study our school. Dr. Metzler alluded about, you know, changing curriculum and instruction and learning. That's the other assessments that we use, the Dibbles, Acadians, you know, we've also got our other pieces such as iReady that are really significant assessments. So I'm going to hang my hat on those assessments, and those are actually structured in a way that we can do them up to 3 times a year. So we will not have a beginning of the year benchmark in our typical means, but as soon as we can get the students comfortable into our school, we will start that assessment. So I'm not terribly concerned about that state testing. It's a mandated piece. We'll offer it because we need to. We're going to make it fun at the central school. We're looking at having the 4th graders come in, let them get one of the pieces, give them a little bit of break time, make use of the playground, the tent, hope that the weather is working for us, and come back and spend another 30 minutes showing what you've learned. And that's really what it's all about. It's not a test. It's about showing what you've learned. So we also expect, the reality is that families do need to make choices because that is part of the state testing. So we will honor that as well. So as much as, you know, we need to do it, we're going to make the most of that piece. And we don't even get those results back for a while too. So, and since it's a new model, I don't even know what's going to tell us.
Okay, thank you. So I just to clarify, if a parent does not want to send their child in, they do not have to?
That has been a staple for the last couple of years for the New Hampshire state assessment. Parents just need to communicate it with the principals and we will take care of the details with them.
Okay, just wondering. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much, everyone, for all the information. Oh, Dr. Metzler, sorry, one more thing. I don't know about exchange rates, so I don't know if that's something we need or we don't need. so I don't know if Jeff wants to talk to the school board about what that is and if it's a data point that we need. I mean, I have an idea of what it is.
Well, I think, yeah.
I just
I think-
don't, if I'm going to make a decision on something, I'd rather get someone that knows a lot more about it than me to figure out if,
both. These are the questions that I alluded to when I saw the rough draft of the report, in a sense of, what's the difference between air quality and what's the difference between air coming in and air going out? Do we have the exchange? Not necessarily air that's just there, but what do the exchange rates look like? So I think, yeah, Jeff could probably speak more to that in terms of what does that mean. I'm pretty sure, I'd say I'm confident that it's a different test and report than the one we have. Exchange rates versus air quality. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, so this is Jeff Dowd speaking in. So the indoor air quality test we've had run is a good indicator of a number of factors. And since air quality, at least in draft form, seems to be at good levels and solid levels and very similar to, somewhat similar to what we have outside, it's certainly a good indication that we are in good shape from an air quality perspective in the schools. One of the interesting factors here under the current COVID environment, current pandemic environment, is that there really is no, I don't want to say silver bullet, there's no real silver bullet in terms of filtration or a guaranteed solution to having any of the particulates in the air, except for the fact that if you have, and you're able to introduce fresh air into the space, that can dilute any particulates of the virus that may be present. So indoor air quality is a good measure of a lot of things, and you really need to get that resolved, make sure that's resolved at an initial level. Indoor air exchange is a test whereby the amount of air that's able to come into a room and the amount of air that's being exhausted from the room can be measured to make sure that you're able to have that balance, to be sure that you have enough fresh air coming in to dilute any potentially harmful particulates in the air, any harmful virus in the air, just in case they are there. It's a measure that a lot of places have been using now. And just an interesting fact is that all of our houses now and all of our buildings, we try and get as tight as possible in terms of insulation and building envelope. And we're recognizing more than ever that those buildings being so well insulated and so tight and so free from outside environments, we have to introduce fresh air into those spaces, into our spaces in the building. And so that's what this indoor air, that's what this air exchange rate would measure in those rooms. How much air are we able to bring in and how much air are we able to exhaust from the rooms? So right now our indoor air quality tests in draft form seem to indicate that we're so close to the outside air in a lot of cases that we're probably okay in that area in that regard. But that may be something that we'll be looking into to run specifically as a factor to have our staff have confidence in the air quality and air turnover rates in our buildings in order to make a successful return.
so do you want us to make a decision to direct you guys to perform some type of exchange rate test, or?
No need. No, we've had the air quality. I'd like to see how that comes back. And if everything looks good there, and we know that we're in great shape generally in the building, we will pick a sample and have some rooms specifically tested that may represent those rooms in the district, represent a solid sample of rooms in the district.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yeah, no need. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Any other questions? Go
I
ahead,
just
Megan.
have one more. So we've talked about the surveys that have gone out to the teachers as well as the parents. I'm wondering how and when we plan to collect similar data from the students. I guess Mr. Collins or Mrs. Janola.
I can.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Flynn.
Okay, so yes, the students we're trying to time them appropriately as they're getting up and running. They'll be seeing some type of form. We probably make it more personal coming from the teacher specifically rather than a generic survey. they'll be the ones soliciting the information. You know, as you're aware, when you're delivering feedback for first, second, third, fourth grader can be a lot different than 5 through 8. So those are going to be determined appropriately. You could see at the middle school being more team-based through an advisory program. But we'll be soliciting the information as well in some of those areas that you saw today with the family ones, with how are they feeling with the appropriate level of work? Are they feeling supported by the teachers? Is it too much, too little? We'll be doing dipstick stuff throughout the year on those more specifically with the students. But they are part of the, you know, the triangulation of the data. It's very important that their voice is heard throughout this process because they are our product. They are the ones that we're focusing on. So we need to make sure that we're getting information from them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to move on to the next agenda item. That works for everybody. So next up, we have the November 3rd Election Day facilities request. Mr. Dowd, I believe you're going to speak to this.
I will, and I'm more than happy to speak to that. And I spoke with the board previously about the primary election in September that was just held at the middle school gym. In that case, we really did turn the gym building over, or the gym area of the school over to the town. They could do their setup. From what I hear from the town and from what I hear from our facilities department, that seemed to go exceedingly well. The town made a commitment that they would use just the gym area and the external exits, which I believe they did, and that they would have the space deep clean prior to returning back to us, and that I hear went well as well. So the town has a request, a longstanding request actually, for the election on November 3rd, which is expected to be a larger election. Now the town has invested in some booths that provide some social distancing, and of course they themselves would like to engage in the appropriate level of social distancing. So in addition to the gymnasium, they've requested, as would be typical, use of the lobby or the hallway on the gym side of the building, as well as use of the cafeteria for spillover from the gym. Now, not knowing the exact size of the population who may attend the voting session, and I guess trying to just be in good order, they will be trying to perhaps split up the voting on that day to allow social distancing, proper social distancing. I'm not exactly sure what that might look like. However, I know that request is out there. So again, we've had a very, very good experience with the town, taking control of the gym building for the previous voting session. I bring this up to the board. I wouldn't anticipate that this would be any different, except for the fact that we're dealing with not just the isolated area of the gym. Now it's going to be the gym, the hallway, and the potentially the cafeteria. I have absolute faith and confidence in the town that those will be deep cleaned and returned to the school in good order. There is some disruption to the educational environment. That is a day that has been scheduled off, even if the students were in the school. When the students specifically are not in the school, we do have, as we're in remote now, we do have staff delivering education from classrooms in the school. We also have certain students attending for very special programs. So it is a little bit of a bump in the road in planning. And I think in previous years, we would just plan on Tuesday being the day of disruption. And I think in this case, it's going to be possibly Monday, possibly Wednesday, in addition to Tuesday between the setup, the way that we have to have the buildings cleaned and available for the town, and the cleanup on Wednesday. So I'm going to put that out there for the board just to let you know. If you'd like, obviously, I would recommend allowing the use. I don't think that the use or the request for the cafeteria is an unreasonable one. It is based in solid logic on the social distancing theory. I don't know if they'll need it or not, but it of course is going to be a disruption in that learning environment for 3 days, which the administration will have to keep in mind. So I don't know what the thoughts are of the board on that. I can certainly answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. My only thought in this, and really I applaud the town for thinking of ways to distance people, because that is important. My only concern is that if we have managed or are planning to enter back into the school on a more full basis, we're talking about 3 days of, as you said, disruption. Now granted, we don't know 100% yet what the beginning of November is going to look like. So I don't want to, I'm not saying that we would in any way deny it or anything. It's just something I think probably the building staff and administrators certainly need to be aware of, as they will be, of course. But I don't know. That's what came up to me, is just extended period of disruption. Because additionally, I would imagine we're talking about a bigger area being cleaned. So I think we'd have to anticipate that Wednesday would probably have those areas off limits. I don't know. I don't know how fast they do the cleaning, but just thoughts. No real questions there, but just kind of thoughts.
Jeff, I apologize. I had to use the restroom. Why are they using the cafeteria?
There is a concern that they will have to socially distance, and as a result of that, they may not have sufficient space to socially distance and set up all of the, the check-in booths and all of that in the gym alone.
Okay, because I didn't know if they wanted to have people line up in the cafeteria or something, because my experience from voting recently was the amount of people that wanted to vote, the time it took them to check in, there was only a limited amount of people to check them in alphabetically. By the time the people went over to vote, they were done so quickly that the spaces that they had set up in the gym at the middle school weren't even being utilized to vote in, because they couldn't move people in fast enough. They were just coming in, voting, and leaving, and the lineup was so long. So what I thought when I came back and I heard you talking about the cafeteria, I thought maybe they were thinking ahead about, the lines are going to be so long that maybe let's have some of the people inside the building or something. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah, and I'd have to, the bottleneck then will be the check-in, right? Is that what I'm hearing? So I'm not sure if.
Well, it was that day. People, by the time they checked in and voted, they just couldn't get them through long enough, because they only allowed one person in line, maybe a second person in line 6 or 8 feet behind them. They just couldn't check them in fast enough. I mean, I'm not here to talk about the voting issues, but
yeah,
voting is so important that if it disrupts the school and it benefits voting, I would say let it benefit voting. I would say if it was easy enough to pull the 3 tents next to the building so people don't have to wait out in the rain or cold, I would say do that too. Hopefully the selectmen are thinking about the lines and if there is inclement weather. So that's my 2 cents on them using that. As long as it's going to be used, my vote would be to use it, because voting is so important.
So I know that we have the tent out there, and if that could be an area that we could use to queue people up, that might be helpful, or to have them queue people up. I know moving the tent would not be an easy endeavor, and it would involve getting into the asphalt and that sort of thing out right outside the gym.
I'm not volunteering a tent. I just hopefully they're thinking about it. If they ask us to use them, that's up to them. Hopefully they're thinking ahead about inclement weather. This is going to be a historic amount of people coming out to vote. And the lines were long. They're going to be even longer. People spaced out. So hopefully they're thinking about that. Maybe I should.
And I'm sure Jeff Mackey will be working with the town to definitely try and understand what that plan would be. Interestingly enough, we would lose access to the music room. That's really the only area that would be really something that we may need to use. The music room that's off of that lobby hallway. We do have access from that music room directly outside, so we could access it from the exterior to go in. And it's entirely possible that one of our tents would be used if we had some band practice or something going on that would simply be used for that purpose. Although I'm not sure that with the crowds that may be expected, that it would even be wise to be having the school in use at all. But food for thought. And I'm sure Jeff will continue to follow up with the town, and all options will be explored.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Jeff, do you need a vote from us or no?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's presumed that it's
I don't think so either.
it's authorized, but this is more of an informational.
Mhm.
A lot of people do
Yep.
get some information from these meetings, so I think it's helpful to share with the community and with administration.
Agreed. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments on this one, so we'll move ahead. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, next up is the 2020-2021 school calendar revision. First read, Mr. Flynn.
So to piggyback off what everyone was just discussing in anticipation, we spoke earlier when we initially did this last year that day typically ends up being parent-teacher conference day. So what we did is we took a look at it to shift some things around. You'll see on the calendar in front of you, specifically on the voting day, there's a V now, where that used to say PC. And we put a V for two reasons. One, to obviously emphasize it's voting day, but also depending on where we are, as you just mentioned, the disruptions, we put it as a possible virtual day. So let's say we are back in phase 3. We know that the town's going to be using our buildings and there's going to be disruptions, that we would move that towards a virtual learning instruction day at that time. And hearing Mr. Dowd now, that might possibly have to occur on the 2nd now. That's why this is in draft form. If we're going to have to empty the middle school facility earlier in order to allow cleaning and then set up, we just have to be flexible. And I think we've understood that no matter what we're doing this year, we're going to have to be flexible in what we're doing. So you'll just see those few changes. So what we did is then Ms. Dinola and Mr. Collins backed up the parent-teacher conferences to the end of the first quarter, which happens at the end of November now. And so you see that on, excuse me, December 1st and 2nd. Those are really the only two changes as of now. And the reason why 17 and 16 are highlighted is because you flip-flop the amount of school days that month. It goes from November goes up 1 and December goes down 1. So those are the only changes that we anticipate at this time. Everything else kind of fell within as we're moving forward throughout this unique year.
Mike, this is
Okay.
Jim. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Hi, Jim.
Hi. So you said voting day might be a virtual day?
A virtual day for students, meaning if we're not going to have, if the town's going to be using the facility, we don't want the students within the facility during voting because of the current circumstances.
I understand that. I thought we talked about not having any school on voting day. You know, I know kids might not hold signs at the polls. Maybe they do. Mine have and will continue. But parents and teachers might volunteer for voting, holding signs for someone. I personally feel that voting day is a bigger holiday than most holidays we celebrate. It should be a holiday. It should be a national holiday. Everybody should have off. Our children should have off, and they should know why. I don't think our kids should go to school on voting day. And that's for them to participate, for their parents to participate, for the teachers to participate, for administrators to participate. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I cannot guarantee that my kids will be at school on that particular day.
So just in past years, that was a parent-teacher conference day. So staff were in on those days, and students, families were coming in and out for the conferences. That's why this is a draft. It's obviously discussion. So those are some avenues we are looking at that were different than in the past with the voting days, because it was typically, as you mentioned, a non-instructional day for students, but it was a work day for staff.
Right. I know most people don't have that day off, and some take it off for voting reasons and participating in the election. I don't think there should be any school on that day. So no one in Hampshire should have to work or go to school on that day. That's my feeling. I don't know what you guys think. Please let it be known right now or soon. But that's what I think. I think that you shouldn't have to try to figure out. The most important thing that day is voting, or participating in voting, or helping someone else vote. or holding a sign or whatever you want to do, and not having a parent-teacher conference. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I'd like to jump in there and not speaking just about, I want to speak just to this year, Jim. I don't know about voting days being off limits in the future. But for this year, I have a concern too. You just said in the other presentation, it was said that they may use the cafeteria this year. And if there's school going on, what does that do to the lunches? And even if there's not in-person school going on, I'm not sure about this, but aren't we providing free lunch to people? So the kitchen would have to be open?
We are, Karen, and that's a fair question. This is Jeff again. That's a very, very fair question. I anticipate any use of the cafeteria that would be going on would be exclusive of those areas. And we do have a way right now, and I'll speak a little later on about the way that we're able to serve those lunches now. And it's by using the cafeteria doors to be able to serve directly. And on those days, those are not days that we would have people in the building. We do have a way to serve people directly from the kitchen in the schools. And if that is the case, if there's going to be deep cleaning going on, I would anticipate that we would be using the direct access to the cafeteria. As far as I understand, parents are not, or guardians or students are not entering the building to pick up their meals on Monday or Wednesday. And so I don't think they'd be in the building. It would be more of a matter that we'd just be shifting it to around the corner where we could get direct access to the kitchen without interfering with the setup or breakdown or cleanup of the cafeteria. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if the use of the cafeteria would be limited to just a break area for the poll workers so that they can go and have some lunch or take a break for a while. But in any event, it would have to be be returned to us cleaned and all that. So that would be my idea.
Monday or Wednesday, Jeff. Voting takes place on Tuesday.
Yeah, like I said, there's no voting there would be no work in the cafeteria on Tuesday. It's the cleanup on Wednesday and the setup on Monday that would interfere, and we can shift our operations to a direct external door from the kitchen on those days.
Okay.
Caitlin, if I could.
Yep, Dr. Metzler, go ahead.
In regards to the voting day, I think, we've presented so many challenges to families. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to have children in the schools this year with voting taking place. Absolutely no sense. I think it would be irresponsible of us to even try to do that. I don't necessarily know if there's much value in making it a virtual day. So, I mean, for me, this is a historic day in terms of voting. It happens every 4 years, but, this has an awful lot of history, if you will. And so I think families are going to be, pretty overwhelmed that day for lots of different reasons. So I think given the schedule that we're currently balancing and the year that we're balancing and hours versus days and days versus hours, I don't see, I don't see making that a school day for anybody or even a work day for that matter for anybody. And this particular year, under these particular circumstances, it makes little or no sense to me as well. So I would be recommending that you just make that a no school, and we make up hours or days, however we do, between now and whenever we end this crazy year. I obviously want to hear from the rest of the board members, but I didn't want to beat this around and around and around. I don't believe we'll be recommending having students in the buildings on the day when we're voting.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with you, Dr. Metzler, on that day. I just don't see that I don't see that it has much value for a number of reasons. So that's my take.
Your original advice was it was going to be a remote day, right, Dr. Metzler?
No, they said it could potentially be a virtual day. That would not be my recommendation. I know that they were working on the calendar. I mean, that's obviously something they could do, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think we need to overwhelm families. I think that's going to be another difficult day for folks.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not have school on November 3rd, 2020.
I'll second the motion. Okay, any comments or discussions before we hold the vote. Okay. Melissa, will you please poll the board?
Ms. Malcolm,
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, just a point of clarification. So that will be, that's just it's not a work day. It's not a school day. There won't be staff there. There won't be children there. That will be, the town will be using our facility for voting. And we'll make the day or time or hours up however we normally would and report to the state on that. Correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I just wanted people to be clear. There won't be conferences. There won't be virtual. There won't be. It's just a day. Now, as far as the cleaning goes, we'll work around that. You know, because we don't know what we're not quite sure. We have expectations or hopes what it's going to look like by the time we're voting. Let's just assume we're all back. You know, we'll see what cleaning and that kind of thing looks like, and if we have to come back with additional recommendations because cleaning is a challenge. I don't know that to be the truth, to be accurate just yet, but we'll come back. But for now, we know that that's not a school day or a work day for anybody that lives or works in Hampstead. Right?
Correct.
Okay, we're good.
Just a clarifying question, back to the voting piece. Maybe this is for Mr. Dowd. Do you know if the town is mandating masks or can they mandate masks for voting?
Well, that's a great question, David. It's my understanding the town is not able to mandate masks.
Okay.
I've heard a couple different towns looking at a couple different solutions.
Yeah.
One of them being that if someone does not have a mask, that there may be another area that they would vote in. I think towns are handling that differently, but it's not my impression that masks can be compulsory as part of that process, which makes it a little bit more tricky.
All right. I think that's okay. Just the access to the cafeteria, then I'd be concerned of the people not wearing masks there. To the gym, we know it's going to happen then, but limiting access anywhere else, utilizing the tents, whatever it takes, definitely a concern there. All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Jeff, I'm sorry to jump. Jeff, are we assuming that the town is going to assist in making sure that the building is properly cleaned? I mean, certainly we'll assist, but are they going to assist?
The town actually hired an outside firm to undertake that effort for us at the last cleaning, and they've retained them again for the November 3rd election cleanup as well. I believe it's Clean Harbors who performed that work.
Yeah, please extend our, not that I speak for the board, but extend our appreciation. That should go well then. Clean
Yeah.
Harbors, great.
I will share with you that not only was there don't laugh. What happened. Not only was there a deep cleaning on the inside of the building, but the asphalt outside of the building was also treated. So because remember there was direct access at that point. They weren't using the lobby. It was direct access outside from the parking lot into the gym, and I understand they even treated that area. So they're pretty thorough.
So while we're talking about asphalt, I think it's good. This could have come up in my report, but I'm not sure if board members or the community is aware. The town is repaving their portion of School Street up to the middle school. So that's taken place. Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about that so that people are aware?
Sure. So at present, the town's portion of School Street up to the property line is fully excavated. The town has removed the asphalt, or has reground the asphalt, if you will, on their section of the road. And I spoke with Caitlin a couple weeks ago about this, maybe a little longer. The town extended their favorable pricing to the school to have from our property line all the way up to the, I guess, almost the end of the lower parking lot, which would be that area that you would drive up. As you go in, there'd be the staff parking areas on your left, almost up to the edge of the main parking area, covered with a binder. We'll call it a shim coat or a binder coat, if you will, that would hopefully preserve what we have there and prevent any further erosion or deterioration of that section of roadway. As you know, if you've driven that at all, and I doubt anyone's driven it quickly, it is broken up, continues to be broken up. I do not understand how that section of road continues to be not further deteriorated, as the winters go by, it does tend to crack and ripple more and more. What I'm concerned about is that the staff parking area in particular, if we start losing chunks of pavement, asphalt in those areas, it's going to present a safety hazard for our employees. And I'm concerned about our buses and other vehicles if we end up with major potholes. So the work will not be incredibly expensive. I think it's under 16,000, 15,000. And the idea being that it's not a finished coat of asphalt, but would be about, it would be a binder coat that would go on top. And if it turns out that it holds the asphalt there in place and everything is good, then we could consider a finish coat, but it will at least buy us at least 5 years. We have some paving concerns really at both of our campuses, and nothing major, but it's something that's on the radar. And if we can get that area, the worst area of both properties or both locations tight, safe, and secure, then I think we're in good shape to look at handling other major projects in the future for repaving first. So the road will be, as they're doing the paving, they're going to do one side at a time. And when they begin, there should be access into the school property at the middle school. And the access road will be open, the gates will be open for egress to exit the property. So as we get closer to their actual paving, anyone who's going to be at the school, any of our staff in the buildings, or any students who are going to be there would be able to have their vehicles exit on that access road. So just an FYI for everyone, to let everyone know what's going on. The grinding and paving that they're doing at the beginning of the road is not going to be as intensive as what we're getting on our section of the roadway, but it certainly will be a lot better than what's there right now, and it'll be a lot safer, I think, for our staff and for our visitors to the school.
Thank you, Jeff. Anything else on the calendar revision for first read? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to keep us moving here to the SAU budgeting comparison. Mr. Dowd, I believe you're up again.
I am, and Mike, if I can maybe screen share out here, I will bring up the projected budgetary implications from the plan that we've put together and address any questions that the board had. I really didn't know what we would be looking at as a board, if there were any specific questions out there that I could help address. I will put that plan out there. There it is. To address any of those potential cost savings or budgetary items, were there any questions in particular that the board had that I can address? I think that the agenda was showing that this was going to be a comparison to the current budget that we have in the current budget. Or current contribution to the SAU is $537,182. So we're looking at the potential of a range of additional expenditures. As you can see, there's our SAU assessment right there. And I'm proposing a couple permanent budgetary savings along with the benefit savings. So we should end up in a situation that we have some net savings overall. And I don't know if there are any questions on those savings that I'm proposing.
I think that I think these are good numbers to have. They're certainly helpful. I know we're all still working through what the final draft of the SAU reorg looks like. So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on this, but Jeff, I don't want you to not feel like we have questions. I just think that we're still figuring all of this out right now. But if anyone does have questions on these, speak up. Okay. Okay, I don't think we have any questions right now. I know they're coming, Jeff, so be prepared.
I'm here all night.
I know. Okay. So I'm going to skip now move to the discussion about the school board scholarship for Pinkerton students for this year. Basically, we just need to discuss or reaffirm that we would like to consider providing scholarships again. Last year, we did give 2 scholarships each for $1,000. And that was an increase we put in place last year. I think it's appropriate, knowing the cost of what going to school is like. I mean, I would suggest that we keep it again at $1,000. Just a quick refresher for anybody watching, or just a refresher for board members. The school board does not pick the recipients. The recipients are actually picked by Pinkerton, who obviously knows these students a little bit more than we do, and always pick very deserving Hampstead students for this. But does anyone have any thoughts on the $1,000 mark for each of them? So we would have 2 at $1,000 each. Well, I don't see or hear anyone, so I'm assuming everyone agrees. I feel like I asked this question too. Oh, go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say, I think that the $1,000 is appropriate. If you look back over one point years ago, it was as low as 300 and went up to 500 and then 750. And then last year we jumped it to 1,000. And I think that even that doesn't hardly keep up with the cost, but I think it's, I think we should keep it at that level.
Okay. Not hearing anything else. I think we're all pretty much in agreement. Do we need a vote on this? Yes? Okay. Melissa's nodding at me, so I'm going to go with yes.
Yes, you should vote on it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to provide 2 scholarships for Hampstead seniors, each at $1,000 for this coming year? Is there a second? Okay. Is there any discussion or questions here? Okay, seeing none. Melissa, will you please pull the board?
Sure. Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is the public comments during remote meetings. So as we talked about at the last meeting, and the board directed me to work with Melissa and Mike. So we had a meeting to kind of figure out the best way to do this so that people can participate in public comments even when we're in remote meeting settings. So what we've come up with and what we discussed was looking at what our policies are for public comments, what the process has been in the past when we were doing in-person meetings on signing up for them, signing up for public comments, etc. So what we're going to do, what I'm proposing to the board, I don't know if you need to vote on it or not, but this is what I think we need to do. So Mike has put together Mike, is it a Google form? Yeah, here we go. So it's a Google form. There will be a link on the meeting announcements that Melissa sends out. That so right now, if you look at our agendas and you look at what's posted, there's a link to our Zoom meetings, so people have that readily available. There will now also be a link to this Google form. What this form does is it does have this section at the top that gives an outline about public comments, what can be done then, what can be talked about, etc. This is the same thing that you'd be looking at if you were coming to an in-person meeting and were signing up to have public comments. So we put the information here so it's easily accessible, and then down at the bottom of the form, Mike, if you can scroll down a little bit. So this is where you are going to fill in information if you're interested in making a public meeting. Excuse me, a public comment at our meeting. We are going to ask that this form be submitted by 4 p.m. on the date of our meeting. So for example, if we were doing it tonight, you'd need to have submitted it by 4 o'clock today. That gives Melissa the chance to compile the list, which then she can get to me as the chair. We're going to be asking for your full name, your address, the town, which should be Hampstead, your email address, because we are going to be sending communication to you. And then we're asking for a digital signature. Basically, you're signifying that you are who you say you are. So that's going to be the process. There are a couple of things I want to go through. Yep, Mike's pointing out exactly where I was going. Okay, your Zoom name, when you sign into these meetings, if you're signing up for a public comment, must match what you put on this form. You know, if we have 50 or 60 people in it, as we typically do right now, we have to be able to find you because you have to be unmuted by one of the hosts. In this case, it's going to be me as the chair who will be muting and unmuting people. So you have to match. If you put down on your form John Smith and your Zoom name says Bobby or something, we're not going to know it's you, and we're not going to be able to call on you. So please just put your full name, make sure it matches with whatever's going to show up on your Zoom screen name. We are not going to require people to put their video on because we don't require that of people who participate in the meeting. We're not going to require you to put the video on. That being said, if I'm going to feel a little bit like a teacher right here, if that seems like it's being abused, if the person who is signing up on the form does not seem to be the person who is talking, we're going to have to reevaluate that, because in a regular public meeting in person, you have to state who you are and you have to state your address in town. So that's one of the ways that public meetings work, and that's one of the ways we confirm that you are who you say you are. So I guess as long as we don't have any issues with it, it will be fine. I do want to talk real quick about what public comments are about and the time frames that we're going to be talking about here. So if I know it's might be a little small on the screen, but if you look at number 1 on this statement and on this section of the public comments document, we allot 10 minutes of our meeting to public comments. That's the way we've always done it. That's what's been in place for a long time. So we're going to continue to do that, especially with these meetings, which we have a lot of information we're going through every time. So we are going to have 10 minutes of public comment. So part of the reason, as I mentioned, we're going to have communication with you. That's why we need an email address. You will get an email from Melissa confirming that your requests for public comments have been received. Because we have a 10-minute time limit, not everybody is, if we have 15 people who sign up for public comments, we're not going to get to everybody, and that is what it is. Additionally, from the 10 minutes of total public comments, we do limit public comments for each person to 3 minutes. As I mentioned, I'm the one who's going to be muting and unmuting. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you're getting your full 3 minutes. But because we have a time frame, at some point I'm going to have to tell you, okay, your 3 minutes is up. So just please be prepared, be concise. Written statements are not a bad thing, just from my experience. So let's see, we talked about a 10 minutes. We talked about 3 minutes each. Additionally, I'm sure everybody who's going to be giving public comments are aware of this, but anything that is abusive, defamatory, if you're trying to come and do some sort of demonstration, any disorderly conduct or interruptions are not going to be tolerated. I, as the chair, am allowed to stop people from speaking if you go in a direction that is defamatory towards anyone. You know, we've had discussions in the past about, you know, as board members, we do accept constructive criticism. But if you're just going to come up and scream at us, I'll give you the chance to say what you need to say, but if you get abusive, your time will be cut off. Additionally, if anyone wants to take a look at our policies, specifically, I can direct you to BEDH if you want to look at it and get some more information about the types of things that you can bring forward. That also will direct you to a couple of other policies that I want to talk about real quick. If you are coming to make statements about an employee or anything like that, this is not the forum for that. It's something that if you have a concern or you can submit it to us in writing, you can go to the administration, but this is not the forum to come and complain about an employee of the district. So I think I've covered everything. Oh, one other piece that I did want to point out going along with these time constraints that we do have. So as I mentioned, you will get acknowledgement that you signed up. Melissa, I believe we talked about, you'll kind of let the first 3 people, because we're going to take people as they sign up in order. Once you get to like the 4th or 5th person, if you're the 4th or 5th person to sign up, you're probably going to get an email saying you are on the list. We're going to try to get to you. But if those 3 people in front of you go to their 3 minutes of time, and we've got 1 minute left, sure, I'll give you that 4th person the 1 minute. But additionally, we're not going to save the list week to week. So if you don't get the, if you're not able to give your public comments, you need to sign up the next week. And again, that's the same way we would do it if we were meeting in person. I think that's everything. Melissa or Mike, if I forgot anything, please chime in. Again, the link to this form is going to be on the agenda. So as soon as the agenda is posted publicly, you'll be able to, and the meeting announcement is posted publicly, you'll be able to submit for public comments.
Caitlin, could
yeah.
Melissa, can you confirm to me, please, that number 3 on here is correct? I don't have it in front of me, but I always thought the understanding was that speakers may comment on items that are on the agenda. That it had to be an agenda item to make a public comment. Couldn't just come in and talk about something that wasn't even on the agenda for the night.
I believe you are correct, Mrs. Yasenka. Just thinking off the top of my head, in the previous agendas that I had put together when we used to meet at the town hall in person, there was some disclaimer at the bottom of the agenda that had said that you would like the public comments to stick to what's on the agenda.
Right, I believe that's in our policy. So number 3 here isn't really accurate. You can't just come and talk about school operations or programs that might concern you, only if it's on the agenda for that night.
And just to clarify, when I was creating this document, I took it directly off the paper we hand out to the individual when they're signing up. So I can edit it any way you guys want me to.
Yeah, that could be an older form, Mr. Flynn, that we've been using for a long time that just hasn't been updated. So we could look at that.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah, and you're right, Karen, the policy says agenda items. And I believe the policy, it's either in this document that Mike is showing or in the policy. It also states, it clarifies that the board can't respond to those public comments, especially if it's not an agenda item, because we speak to things that are on the agenda and we speak to, that kind of has to be announced ahead of time. So that's another piece that kind of is clarification for anyone interested in public comments.
Also, to your point, Caitlin, if someone asks us a question, we can't respond as individuals because we need to meet as a board if we're going to provide a response to those persons, and it would be at the following meeting after we've had a chance as a board to discuss their concerns.
Correct.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from board members or anything about kind of what we're setting up here? Okay, so if everyone's good with that, we will start these for the meeting on the 13th, because the meeting next week on the 6th is a special meeting and not open to public comments. So, okay, I think we're all set then. Mike and Melissa, I think you're good to get that process set up, send it live or whatever. Okay. Now we're on to 2020-2021 policies work update. Okay, so the policy committee met last week to talk about how policy reviews are going to happen this year, specifically around the SAU 55 policies. So for anyone who is not aware, one of the things that we need to do in this transition year to a single district SAU is we need to review all of the policies that currently apply to the SAU function, not specifically to Hampstead. So we talked about how we're going to do that, what the process is going to be, had a quick discussion with our district council as well to make sure that we were covering everything. And basically what the policy committee is going to do is go through and review all of those SAU 55 policies. Mr. Flynn is dividing us into groups so that we can divide and conquer. Really what's going to happen is we're going to look at the policy, decide if it is something that, one, we can just get rid of because it's no longer applicable, or we can decide to incorporate it into a Hampstead district policy, because we're not now going to have SAU 55 policies and Hampstead policies, Hampstead district policies. We're just going to have Hampstead district policies. So we'll be reviewing those on the policy committee. We'll bring them forward. We're working on timing, and we're doing some of that with Dean Eggert to figure out when the board would actually vote on any changes to this. Because obviously SAU 55 as it currently stands does still exist until through June 30th, 2021. So Hampstead as a board wouldn't be voting to abolish these policies before that. So there's a lot of discussion, and I think looks like it may be things being done in batches to take effect when we need them to. So, and then in addition, we'll be looking at anything that's coming up within the Hampstead district policies that need to be reviewed or updated, and those will be brought forward as well. I think I covered everything there, but if there are any questions or comments, or anyone who's on policy thinks I forgot something, speak up. Okay, I'm seeing nothing, so I'm just going to keep going. All right, next up is the 2020-2021 school board goals discussion. So everyone should have a copy of the goals that we had last year. So I think this is a little harder than it's been in years past because we have so much in front of us and so much that we're focusing on as far as transition. You know, we can keep some of these, we can amend them. I don't know. I'm interested to hear what other people's thoughts are. I think a lot of these are still pretty applicable. 21st century learning is still important and still needs to move forward, probably now more than ever. I mean, we have a very strong base for our technology anyways, but FLEST, that's important. I don't know if it needs to stay on. I mean, we're into our second year, so we're obviously continuing to, I don't know if it needs to be a goal, but.
Yeah, I think that should come off. That's
Okay.
not, I don't think that's why these goals are here to like this one, to keep it on year after year. I think it's been successfully
Right.
implemented. What I
Yeah.
don't know if we should put on something specifically about this year to support the delivery of education in a virtual, hybrid, and full-on model or something, and also to support the reorganization of SAU 55. I mean, those are the top two things we're doing this year.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously educating our children, but I don't know if those should be on here as goals for this year. Those are pretty important to make sure that virtual continues on, hybrid happens, and we go in full in at some point. And then also the reorg. Those are two biggies for us this year. Maybe they should be on there.
I think that makes sense. I almost feel like those should just be our goals to get through that.
Well, we could reword others, combine them, take some off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do we want to put it on for our next meeting that we'll come back with to finalize these?
I recommend a short work session, maybe.
Oh yeah, that would probably make sense.
Well,
That would probably make sense.
any more ideas right now about which one should come off, or anybody have any input about what should go on?
I think give people an opportunity to think about this, and a quick work session, half hour or up to an hour, might be able to get that work done and actually have them ready for a vote at the next meeting, perhaps.
I mean, is there any interest in doing a work session before, like the hour or the half hour before the meeting on the 13th? I mean, the 6th, we have the budget stuff, so I'd rather not put it there. But we could do like 6 o'clock, or I mean, it could, I don't even know if we need 6 o'clock, but we can. Like 6 o'clock on the 13th. Just get it done, and then we can go ahead and vote on it on the 13th.
Yep, it works
Yes.
for me.
Yep. Okay. All right, let's do that then. Melissa, if you can make a note.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to board comments and correspondence. So I'm going to go in the order I see them, which means David, you're up first.
Oh, good. Megan and I have met with Trident a couple times. We're going to be meeting again this week, and I would expect we're going to be reaching out to Mr. Collins, Dr. Messler, Mr. Dowd, and Mr. Mackey, and others, probably beginning no later than the first week of October. Just taking some time to review the plans, review what they may come up with as an SAU building and other ways to go about the central school renovation. So just know that we are, we're excited to get together with everybody I just mentioned. But we just want to make sure we're going through the playbook with Trident properly and what they feel will be successful. So that's comments, correspondence, attended the soccer game yesterday for the girls soccer game. I think that was good game. The girls played hard, so it was fun to see all the kids out there together. I know that they're loving being around each other every day, 4 days a week, so that was great to see. And I know we've got a lot of communication from parents recently, so we appreciate the comments from parents. And of course, the hard work. The teachers doing amazing. Just can't say it enough. I know my daughter's loving what she's seeing and hearing from the teachers, doing as much as possible. So appreciate the hard work there. And I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Megan.
I don't think I have anything.
Okay. Karen.
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Jim.
Hey, how you doing? What do I have to say?
Good,
I
how
don't
are you?
know. I have two little ones, one in central school and one in middle school. So I just wanted to let everybody know that personally, I've had a good experience so far with remote. But I do realize everybody has different experiences, and I appreciate all the emails that have come in. And the survey from today, I hope everybody shares what they're seeing. I'm really happy. I have the fortunate ability right now to work from home myself. And it is challenging with their questions and break time and managing what they're doing and lunches and handling their issues. But I think it's very happy what I'm seeing. My kids are happy. Obviously, they'd be more happy in school, and so wouldn't I. I'm very happy with what's turned out so far. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. The only thing I have is, obviously we have gotten emails. We're getting feedback on how things are going in remote learning. We are reading them. I know there's some speculation that we don't read them. We do read them. I try to get back to people as much as I can. Especially if there are questions, I really would, we really want to try to answer questions as much as we can and direct you to the right people if we don't have the answers for you. So, I think that's about it for me. So on to consent agenda. Dr. Metzler, what do you have for us?
Excellent. I do not have a personnel report this evening. I do, however, have a couple of quick items. First, if you remember last year in dealing with Karen Gallagher and trying to help her with the federal IDEA funds, we're in the same situation again this year. I know I sent a brief update to the board recently. Again, Superintendent from Chester, Earl Underwood, working with Chester, Hooksett, Auburn, and Candia. We're trying to do the same thing to work out a way to access our funds that were, I don't want to say misappropriated, but I guess they are misappropriated. They were sent to Derry. So therefore our Pinkerton students, for our Hampstead students that are at Pinkerton rather. So we're working with Derry's been great. So we'll find a way. I know I let Francine know too. So she's on it. So I have all the faith in the world that we'll get something done and we'll have access to those funds to provide those services to, the Hampstead students that are attending Pinkerton Academy. I do have one request. We have a high school senior. I can certainly go into non-public if you need details. The family is moving in December into January. Our district policy allows for students to stay if they move out of the district within 45 days before the end of the year. I'm asking that the board consider allowing the student to finish his time at Pinkerton. It'd be after the holiday break. He could stay as a remote learner. Could commute if he had to, if there's a hybrid model that's still going on. I mean, of course, he's not sure what that will look like. His counselor has advocated for him. He's doing really well. Going to go to college. He's been with us for all these years. So I would hope that we could allow him to just finish his time at Pinkerton if the board would allow that.
I mean, I would personally be in favor with that. Especially with everything that has been going on and being a senior, I don't think I would have any problem supporting keeping a kid within the district rather than making him go somewhere else for the last half of his senior year.
And do
you want to vote?
The only thing we don't do, just so everybody knows, we don't provide the transportation. That would be, but typically, obviously, by the time they become a senior, they're driving themselves if they choose to commute. So that's just one item.
I don't know if any other board members have any thoughts on this, but I'd be in favor of it.
I agree with you, Caitlin.
Agreed.
I'm in favor.
Do you need a vote from us or just a consensus?
I think Melissa would probably prefer a vote, right, Melissa?
Well, I don't want to go against what you just said, but I actually was going to say, I don't think it's necessary as long as you just had general discussion and the board is giving consensus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, either or is fine. I mean, only because it technically is a money item, but you know, but if you
I
give
don't know. Should we ask Jeff?
I know, if you give us permission, you give us
Jeff,
permission.
do you want to vote? He gave it to you. Is that what you said?
I don't have any issue as long as the board is not, there's a general consensus here, I'd say, right? So that's good enough. For me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we already, the budget has the money for this student already because it would have been in our counts. So, okay. I think we're good with consensus. If anything changes and you need to come back to us, it sounds like we don't have a problem with that. So.
Excellent. So, Melissa, either you or Kathy can reach out to the family and let them know tomorrow that
Absolutely.
that student will be. So thank you, and to the board again, thank you. You always putting the kids first, and you always do the right thing. And so our families, on behalf of all of our families, we just say thank you for supporting our kids, because I agree that would be a terrible thing to have to do your second half of your senior year just because you had a change in residence. So thank you for doing that. You need to know not all districts do that. It makes Hampstead special. So thank you.
Not a problem. Anything else for us, Dr. Metzler?
I know Jeff has a budget transfer request because we have a need. Obviously during this pandemic with facilities and all the different things that are going on, there's money needing to be transferred to cover certain expenses because of certain equipment needs. And I know Jeff has one for you this evening.
I do. Thank you, Dr. Metzler. It sent out a note on this to the board, a memorandum form. I'll just share out my screen here for you. And the request is to simply shift $29,000 from our repair and maintenance account to the replacement equipment account to cover the purchase. We already have some money in the account. I just want to make the difference to cover the cost to replace our existing tractor, which is about 9 years old. It's in need of some major repairs, which exceed the value of the unit, which I'm having a real hard time justifying engaging in. So we've priced out a new one. This was really, I won't say at end of life, but it was probably on the closer end to end of life. This would have been a budget thing coming up in the next budget season. But at this point, I just can't justify spending money that we're never going to get back for something that may or may not, continue to operate in good form. Total cost estimated at $33,500. Because the vehicle that we already have isn't really in great shape and really not in good working order, we still were able to work out a trade with a particular vendor. And because of the difficulty in trying to do an RFP, obviously the amount of the purchase price exceeds the amount of our bid policy. I'm requesting both the allowance of a transfer and a waiver from our bid policy because it is such a unique item involving the trade. I do intend to shop it out a little bit more to make sure that we're able to get the best value for our money. And the tractor we have right now really is probably a bit undersized for the work that we have been using it for. So this unit that we're looking at is a little bit bigger. It's more appropriate for for the use on both of our campuses. So looking at about $33,500, I believe, net on that. So those are the two requests that I have in relation to that. If you did want to make a motion on either or both, that would be helpful. I have some proposed language to that effect. I think one would be to approve the budget transfer and waive bid requirements identified in my memo dated September 22nd, 2020. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you have on that if there are any. No?
Any questions? I don't think so. So, all right, let's deal with that real quick. Can I have a motion to approve budget transfers and waiver of bid requirements identified in the CFO's September 22nd, 2020 memo?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay. Any questions or discussions on this item? Seeing, hearing none. Melissa, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yasenka?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
And
So on
Caitlin,
the,
go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
I was going to say on the second matter, we had looked at, as part of our district reopening plan, we had proposed at least 2 additional full-time temporary custodial positions as well. And I believe the plan was accepted by the board, but I really want to make sure that we are clear and that I would be allowed to have those positions posted as we're approaching, hopefully getting our schools reopened and having our students back. The 2 additional full-time temporary custodians would be used for helping to offset our daily coverage, as we have would have and typically would have an isolation room for students with suspected infections, and that room in particular needs to be attended to more frequently, and we need to have an extra available body in the building as well to be able to handle the normal things that come up. And we have obviously more intensive cleaning procedures all around day and night. So I just wanted to see if the board had any objections to that hiring. I've proposed a motion if you'd like. I don't know that I need one. It was, it was part of that plan initially, but I just wanted to be clear with the board that that would be something that I would be looking to hire just for this year. So it would be 2 additional full-time custodial positions, but only for the balance of this year. Any issues, any objections on that? Because I'll move forward on it if there aren't. Didn't seem like there were, but I want to be clear with the board.
I don't have an objection. Are we talking about them starting like now, or when, this is purely informational, or when we get back to a more people in the building situation?
Well, the idea would be that the positions will be available for when we do have more people in the building, when the buildings are under more regular use with students in them, either under hybrid or an all-in remote, all-in model. So I believe that if we, as long as we have the authorization, we can begin to act on these and perhaps have a starting date effective the date, that we reopen the buildings. But that process of posting and looking and interviewing would have to happen now or in the proximate future.
Okay.
Yeah, for those,
Anyone? Oh, yep.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Are those positions going to be during day, night? What's the thought behind those?
Yeah, it's likely going to be a swing shift. We have coverage now from very early in the morning in one way or another in the schools. And I don't think that we're going to have someone in there first thing in the morning. We already have that coverage. I think we can make that work. But this will allow that swing shift to undertake some of the after school cleaning, more intensive cleaning procedures that would have happened then.
All right. Yeah, it's just good to know for the community to know what we're thinking there. So I appreciate that. And,
yep. Thank you.
What's the salary that we're looking at for those?
It would really depend on the experience. They would be under one of our unions, I believe Hsdsb. So we would go by their salary schedule, benefit schedule, all that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm not hearing any objections, so I think you're good to go, Jeff, unless you want the motion.
Again, if it'll be by consent, that's fine. I just don't want to have to do the round robin of the roll call. So I'll let you guys proceed then if you're okay. I'm good without a motion.
Okay.
Caitlin, one
Sounds
last
good.
thing. While we're talking about RFPs, thanks to Melissa, who keeps me adequately prepared for all of my reports. We have on the back burner list, we have an RFP for food service management. So it said for the fall of 2020, which is where we are. So, how do we want to handle that? Is there I guess, Jeff, I'm asking you, is there an opportunity to extend our current vendor, or do we need to send out an RFP?
I believe that we would need to send out an RFP under DOE guidelines. So that doesn't mean that we wouldn't necessarily have the option of going back with our current vendor. The way that the contract worked initially is that it was a 5-year contract, but it was sort of 1 year at a time. So we started with an initial term and then 4 1-year extensions.
Yeah.
We're at the end of those extensions, and I believe that the DOE would require us to go back out more as an awareness to the school board as to what there is out there, what the options are, making sure that we're getting the best value for the district.
No, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we're in a similar situation with special education busing as well.
Correct, with the exception that we may be able to do an extension with them if it made sense to do so.
Got it. Yeah, which we've done that in the past.
We have
in both districts. Okay, so we just want to firm those up. again, this is going to be a busy spring with our establishing a new SAU office and onboarding staff and all those things. So the more of these things that we can take care of now, I think that will be helpful.
Right. And I think on both of those, it's really tough because we typically have used our prior year or past years utilization to project out. And obviously we're having an odd year this year with respect to utilization, although we do have food service available at no cost on Mondays and Wednesdays from 11 in the morning until 12:30 at the middle school. So if anyone is interested in that, we are able to offer free meals as a result of some waivers extended by the DOE. But it's a funky year in terms of trying to look forward to what we're going to be doing or what our needs will be next year in years succeeding that. But we'll get there.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Caitlin.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I just have one thing I wanted to bring up real quick under other business. Board members, I sent you a working document earlier today. It was a little too late to get it on the agenda. So just in reference to responsibilities, we know this year we have a setup of an executive consultant and technically a superintendent at the SAU. So we've been talking about this and trying to get it finalized. So that document, if you can review it, I would like to vote on it on the 6th, just to get it out and in place. I don't want to leave this going too much longer, just so everyone has clarity. So if you have a chance on any feedback, feel free to bring it forward. We can talk about it with district council if you have any questions on it as well. So that was just something I wanted to bring up, just so it doesn't get lost in everything else. So, we'll be looking at the 6th.
I just read it quickly. Karen, it's
Yes.
here.
Yes.
I thought it said on it that it would be effective October 1st.
So it's a draft. In fact, I have to go back to Dean. Unfortunately, I couldn't connect with him today for a call. So that's just, I mean, we can change that. If we vote on it on the 6th, we could have it effective the 7th. It was just his draft form. But I did want to get back to him with any feedback before we did anything final on it. And like I said, I need to connect with him because he presented it to me as a draft. So I need to talk to him before. I didn't want to bring it forward tonight without actually having a conversation with him.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Yep. I think that's it. I don't know that I have anything for a non-public.
One thing under other business?
Yes.
So at a future meeting, I'd like to have a conversation about Columbus Day. Other towns and school districts across the country have made decisions to honor the first people of this country. Locally, Oyster River, the town and the school district. Not that they could do away with Columbus Day because it's a federal and state holiday, but they honor the indigenous people of this country. So I'd like to have a conversation about that at an upcoming meeting. Hopefully I would be able to present something and maybe have someone speak or maybe multiple people speak. But I think I've wanted to do this in the past. Unfortunately, I find myself biting my tongue sometimes because I think other things take priority. But I am not going to do that anymore. If I think something's worth going for and that would benefit our district and the children of our district, then I'm going to go for it. So at a future meeting, I'd like to present that the Hampstead School District, in addition to Columbus Day, honors the indigenous people of this country.
Okay, do you want to do it on the 13th, Jim? Or do you?
I'm not sure if I could get it together by then. That's pretty ironic because the 12th is actual Columbus Day. But if I had my act together, maybe I would have done this years ago.
Well, I mean, this is aligned with one of our school district goals for the appreciation of diversity and inclusivity. So it fits within our goals even. So thanks for bringing that up.
Right.
I mean,
right. I'm
Jim,
sorry, go ahead.
whenever you want to do it, if you just give me a heads up, like the week before, because Melissa likes to keep me on track and get agendas out to us like by Thursday before meetings. So, I mean, if you really like a week before, like the Tuesday before a meeting, we can get it on the agenda.
Great. All right. Thank you. I just
Whenever
wanted
that
to-
works for you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Like I said, I don't think I have anything for non-public tonight unless someone else does. It's kind of shocking, but okay. Unless anybody has anything else, I think we're done. We're ready to adjourn, I think. Anybody going once, going twice? Shoot, my gavel's over across the room. This would have been a great opportunity.
The discussion that we had last time, I thought we were going to do more of that tonight. Did that not happen?
I have an email that'll go out to everybody.
Okay. All right, so maybe next meeting then. We should have a non-public next meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. I'll send an email and schedule stuff.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
All right. I think we are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
9:41.
And everybody, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.
Good night.